Hi, everyone. I am Erica Miller, and you are watching People from Cleveland Are Dope. Today, we are featuring poet, writer, communications entrepreneur Kelly Harris-DeBerry. Kelly is going to tell us all about how she went from East Cleveland, Ohio, all the way to her current home of New Orleans, Louisiana. She is the author of Freedom Knows My Name and Homegirl, in which the poems are designed around a Cuyahoga County map. Kelly, welcome to People from Cleveland Are Dope. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be considered one of the Clevelanders who are dope. There's so many. There's so many. So thank you for having me and thank you for having a vision for this. I think highlighting people from Cleveland is a good thing and certainly it can help shape the city. And so I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Um, Happy to do it. Happy to shine a light on great people from our hometown.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Um, I give back maybe 3 times a year. I'll be actually in Cincinnati in a couple of weeks, and then I'll probably be home in November sometime. So, do you give
Uh,
back often as well?
I usually do about once a year, but
Mhm.
this year it'll be twice because I was there in June and I'm going back in October.
Okay.
So that's just next month. Oh my gosh. I'll be there a month from now almost. So
This year is flying.
yeah, it sure is. My goodness. Like, have you seen the stores? They're full of Halloween stuff on the same
I
aisle with Christmas stuff.
I know. I was laughing today. I saw like just a whole row of candy corn, and I was like, "Oh boy, here we go."
It's
Yeah,
such a hard time of the year if you're trying not to, indulge in
yeah,
things that are bad for you.
yeah. And I miss the fall, as far as being from Cleveland, I really miss it. I miss the leaves changing colors and just the shift, in the environment. Because it's like just hot here all the time. So I get a few cool, maybe December, but even that's tricky. Maybe like January, February is cool, but then it's right back to hot. So.
Wow.
Mhm.
I've only ever been to New Orleans in August.
Yeah, come back when it's a little cooler. Yeah, it's only a small window of time. But like I said, I do miss the seasons. I even miss the snow sometimes, honestly. And people from Cleveland say, what, why? But I do miss it sometimes, especially around the holidays. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. It's
Mhm.
nice to be in your living room where it's warm, where you can look outside at the snow,
Yeah.
and it's really beautiful
Hmm.
until you have to go out in.
I mean, I don't miss warming up my car and shoveling. I don't miss that at all, but I do miss the four seasons. I really do miss it.
Yeah. Okay, so I like to start off the interviews with asking the guests about where they grew up. So please
Yeah.
tell us.
Well, I like to consider myself a third generation East Clevelander. My paternal grandparents came from Mississippi. My grandfather was from Mississippi. My grandmother was from Birmingham, Alabama. And my grandfather was in World War II and he was on the ships. And so he was stationed in Alabama, a port city. And he met this or saw this beautiful young thing, short chocolate woman, and she was irresistible. And so they became one very soon. And so after he finished his military duty, there was obviously the Black migration was in full effect and full swing. And so they decided to make their next home in Cleveland. And so I've often asked what made them choose Cleveland. And people tell me that my grandfather just chose it because everybody else was choosing Detroit and Chicago. And so I get some of that, I guess, honest, whereas if everybody's going to the right, I'm probably going to go to the left because why are y'all going to the right? And so, uh, so they came to Cleveland and they lived near the area of Rollins and Union, which is now kind of the area of the Opportunity Corridor. And so they stayed in a triplex of other Southerners, people from Mississippi, people from Alabama. And so everybody would kind of stay in this triplex area and they would kind of find their way, get all the tips of living north. And then they stayed there for a while. And my grandmother was a domestic, cleaning up white folks' homes. My grandfather was a like the handyman. He could fix anything. He did work for General Motors for a little bit. But my grandmother was walking one day from work to catch the bus in East Cleveland, and she saw this house in East Cleveland. And she was like, I want this house. And she like got on my grandfather's nerves about this house for a very long time. And then one day she was walking from work to catch the bus, and that house became for sale. And so she was like, hey, this house is for sale. And he had saved money and they wind up getting the house. And so they were the second Black family on Bender Avenue. And at that time, it was not what it is today. And so my father grew up in East Cleveland. My aunts grew up in East Cleveland. And and they went to a much different Shaw High School than we know of it. And so that was that. And then my father was the only one that stayed when they became adults. So my uncle went on to Michigan and my aunts went on. And so my father stayed. And simultaneously, as he's staying as an adult in Cleveland, my mom, who was from Arkansas, um, was migrating to Ohio to Cleveland. Her sister was a teacher and was a part of this program for segregated schools. My mother is the 14th of 15 children. They had 11 girls and 4 boys. And so the rule was they were sharecroppers. And so the rule was if you went north, you had to go where someone already was. And so my mom comes to Cleveland and there my aunt is living in East Cleveland. And so my mom was walking to church one day and my father is going to church one day and he sees this beautiful woman. It's like, oh, who is that? And so they meet at church in East Cleveland on Hayden Avenue. And so my genesis of who I am begins there. And then, my parents have children. And so um, I'm the third generation of East Clevelanders. And so a lot of my foundation for poetry, for the way that I live, really comes from that place. So when I rep East Cleveland, it is not just about the school. It is really, or what school you went to. It is really about being in a place that was full of love, even though we were on welfare, even though we had the government cheese, even though we had food stamps, even though people were always breaking into our home. There was such a richness of Blackness there that I cherish to this day. So, and it's important that I kind of share the DNA of East Cleveland because you really won't truly understand who I am without starting at the genesis of my family. Yeah.
What an eloquently told story. That's
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you.
I
So
mean, I don't know how many people can really relate how their grandparents met and how their parents met. And so you just wove that beautifully into a story. So
well,
thank
well, I couldn't before I moved to New Orleans. Let me say that. I think moving to the South forced me to look back at my family and the city in a different way. New Orleans is such a rich place of history, and people always can tell you, that was my grandma's house, or my papa was there, or all of those things. And so I could see Cleveland differently, and even thinking about the Midwest regionally. I'm from, Cleveland, but then I drill down, I'm from East Cleveland, and then I drill upward that I'm from the Midwest. And so I was confronted with all those things when I moved to New Orleans, and people were like, "Where are you from?" And nobody believed I was from Cleveland. Like they're like, "What? You from Cleveland?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am from Cleveland,"
Thank
but
you. Yes.
and so, but it really forced me to think about what does it mean to be from Cleveland?
Mm,
And there were so many things that I didn't recognize about Cleveland until I left it, or just things that happened in my family. Because, my mom was from the South. She was always frying fish, and we were always eating these things. And I didn't think about it. I didn't weave the history of the South in the Midwest, or my grandmother soaking collards in the sink, or just all these Black people in East Cleveland that were just regular old folks, postal people, handyman, janitors. So there was, and like East Cleveland, to be very honest, I don't even remember engaging with white people until like my parents divorced and I went up the hill, right? But um, we were surrounded. It was like our own little Black world, right?
yep.
I mean, we grocery shopped there. My mom had a salon there. Um, and so I'm just very grateful. I got my first library card at the East Cleveland Library. And so uh, that's why I'm so passionate about it, because the idea for me was the idea that a Black neighborhood could work. It
Mm-hmm.
could work. It had problems, but it could work. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I'm grateful. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. My first job was in East Cleveland.
Where?
Baskin Robbins on Euclid and Superior.
Oh wow. Wow.
That
I
was a
remember
long,
it.
and that was a long way from where I grew up. I was all the way on Lee and Harvard, but you know,
Yeah.
my
So you're
my
making a
cousin,
trek.
my dad's cousin owned it, so got my first job there.
And
And
that's the thing. There were a lot of Black owned businesses. Like we we make a distinction now, but it was actually really normal.
mhm,
The Room, it was like this bar, and they did corned beef too, really good corned beef sandwiches too. That was like up the street from me. And then there was like a candy store, and there were all these other things. And so B&M barbecue, those all these things were like right there. And so I didn't realize that until I left it. Like, wow, I was already surrounded by a lot of things.
mhm, mhm.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yep. I had a Black pediatrician, had a
Hmm.
Black dentist, had a
Hmm.
Black orthodontist. My
Hmm.
parents' accountant was Black,
Hmm.
so I grew up with all of that.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think when you see that kind of representation, that is so important in it.
mhm,
And it just gives you a different worldview.
yeah, yeah.
Because
So
you
when,
know, you grow
yeah,
up knowing I can do this. Because I can see these people who look like me
mm.
doing these things.
And even more so than that for me, I wasn't around people that went to college. Like, I don't remember having models of folks that went to college, really. My aunt, yes. But for the most part, these were regular Black people making a living. And
Mm-hmm.
it really taught me early on that to look beyond status, title, education, that look for the value in people, just their human value, and not just, education. I think I became more aware of those types of things when I moved to Cleveland Heights when my parents divorced. It was actually a culture shock for me because I was like, wait, what is this? Suddenly the halls are predominantly white, and I'm like, wait, what? Or you just didn't have the sense of neighborhood. We had block parties, and now everybody's kind of like in their homes. And so now, even when I live in New Orleans, like I feel like I have to live in an urban space kind of, because I need the energy of a city. I need a
Huh.
little bit of that. I don't like just walking out of my house and I got to see some things. I got to see some movement. and I had that in East Cleveland. Yeah,
So
yeah.
you graduated from,
Cleveland Heights, and I had a good time, I guess. I was in such a transition that I really missed out, I think, on the fun of high school.
mm,
My parents were divorced. It was like a messy divorce. It was a real stressful divorce. My brother had graduated, so he was gone. And so like the burden, I have a younger sister. So the burden of it all really just fell on my shoulders. And yeah, just going from two income to one income, like all these things, seeing my mother struggle, all of that, it really shifted me greatly. I think for better and for worse at times.
mm,
And so I didn't get a chance to graduate with all my people and all of that. Although we still stayed connected. I'm connected to many of them to this day, but and that speaks a lot about East Cleveland, So yeah, I think once you're East Cleveland, you always rep it. I mean, my father is like going into his 80s and he was at a festival or something and somebody, tried to jump left with him and he was like, I don't know who you think you're talking to. I'm from East Cleveland. And it's like, he's 80, still repping it like that. Um, so yeah, so that pride I think that's a common thread when you meet people from EC.
so
Yeah.
where did you like to hang out when you were young?
My house was kind of the hangout. I had an older brother. We had a basketball hoop in the back. Um, we were and we were in the middle of the street. So people could come from, both angles and your mama could find you, and that kind of thing. So we hung out a lot there. And I should say that although things eventually my family eventually kind of separated in terms of divorce, my father was an insurance man, but he was also a self-taught visual artist. So, I could be braiding my hair or washing dishes, and he'd walk by with his sketchbook and say, "Hold that pose." And he'd sketch me. And then my mom was a hairstylist and she would do hair in the basement. So, and then my brother was always trying to make the Shaw band. So, like, even at Kirk, he was trying to make the Shaw band. And so he was always in the basement drumming, all of that. And so the combination of all those three things in my house, in the basement, I believe were the building blocks for me as a poet because my father would start drawing something or painting something, and I would see the progression of that in the basement. So it taught me to kind of um, wait for the final product of something or like be okay with something evolving, right? I don't sometimes I'm impatient, but I feel like this thing about me where I love to see something evolve. And then my mother was doing hair. So as a girl, I always heard Black women's stories. I heard the laughter, I heard the frustration, the smell of hair,
Hmm.
all the different styles of hair, all of that. And then, my brother drumming, he would always be making beats. And so that's how you had to communicate with him. You had to jump into the beat of what he was doing to actually talk to him. So if my mother told me, go tell your brother get the clothes out the washer, he could be doing some beat like and I would have to like jump in and say, Mama said, Mama said, Mama said, get the clothes out the washer, like that kind of thing. And so like
Yes.
fast forward now to me being a poet, if the musicians and being in New Orleans where, we have all these great musicians, I can jump in with confidence around music all the time because I've been trained for it. It was all like rehearsal. And so I think I did get a lot of my training as a poet in the house. And I'm like a random person. I don't know if you notice that, like, but I'm random and I go down, I try to invite people to go down the rabbit hole with me. And there's a point to it. Um, but that kind of creativity in the home has stuck with me. And so
Oh,
even to this day, my husband is like, what are you doing? Or, my daughter is like, Mama. But I'm trying to position myself for the poems to come to me. So I'm
oh,
chasing them, yes, but I'm also like, okay, what needs to be written today? I don't know, but I'm open to the transformation of something little that I might see morphing into a poem. And I just try to like keep myself fresh and mentally vibrant and open and flexible. And growing up the way I grew up taught me that. But I used to always hang out, and I don't know if that actually answers your question, but we used to always hang out at USA roller skates. So
uh-huh.
big roller skater. Like my dad was too, my brother was too. So like all the moves, on the side when dragging your foot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was all of that. So I still am. So, you know, I know like a real skater when I see their skates. Like if you just rent skates, you might not be like a hardcore skater, but if you're coming in there with your own skates, I already know you're about that skate life. So that was a big thing. But I just hung out. I just hung out
Uh-huh.
at home and church. We're always at church and skating.
Skating, yes.
Playing playing Uno. We used to have Uno tournaments like
Gosh.
crazy.
Oh no.
And Nikki used to come over, Nikki, and she would at my house all the time. And so we had a lot of just plain old fun. It wasn't anything like today where everything is scheduled with kids and curated. It was just happenstance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was.
hmm
Yeah. So from Cleveland Heights, you went to college
hmm hmm I
and
went
you
to
went
Kent.
to Kent State University.
hmm
Okay. Tell us
Yeah.
about those years.
Uh,
What were some of your biggest influences? Is this when you got into writing or was it before then?
well, I started writing in fifth grade. I actually still have my fifth grade notebook. It has survived hurricanes and everything. I still have it. I have my first poem that I ever wrote in there. I didn't even know I was writing a poem. I wrote my first poem on Bender Avenue in fifth grade. And so I was in Upward Bound too, I should say that. And so I don't know why to this day we were sent to Akron U. We didn't go to Case, we didn't go to Cleveland State. We went to Akron University and so that was a great experience too. And I really do think that kind of saved me because that was in the transition period of my parents divorcing. But I went to Kent State. I had got accepted to Spelman and to Morgan State and like all these places, but my folks were like, "We ain't got no money to be coming to get you and travel." So I went to Kent State, and I liked it. It was good. And what really was there were like three things that really shifted me and pushed me into poetry, I think even more. So every year they have this like black pageant. And if you don't know anything about Kent State, although it's not a HBCU, at the time that I was going and like previous to that, it was like hardcore black. Like you had a black student center, like you had Malcolm X murals and all that kind of stuff on the wall, and they had this black pageant. And so it was like they were having their own Miss Black Kent State, Miss Black, whatever, King. And so they had one for the upperclassmen and the freshmen. I was a freshman, and I was just on the committee to help with it. I didn't want to be in the show. But somebody got sick or something happened and they dropped. So they needed another female. And they were like, Kelly, why don't you be in there? And I was like, I don't have a talent. They're like, you do something. And I was like, I just write poetry. I don't sing. I don't dance. I don't do anything like that. They were like, well, just come and just fill it in. So I wound up being in the show I didn't really want to do it, but I got talked into it. And so I'm in the show. I do my poem. I turn around, I do my poem, walk off the stage, do all the other things. And uh, I packed up. Like I knew I wasn't going to win. I just knew I wasn't going to win. So I put back on my hoodie. I'm way on the other side of campus. So I'm like, okay, show over. I'm like trying to get back to my dorm. And they called my name and I won. And I was so shocked. I was
Ah,
like, you gotta go, but you can't go back out there like that. So I had to put back on like something I had and run out there and be crowned as a freshman. And after that, like I really became known as like the poet. And they're like, oh my God. And people was. And so from there, then we started like an open mic and I was hosting that. And people were coming from everywhere. And they also had a Black publication. I became the editor, that poetry editor, then editor, all of those things. So that happened. But then my second year as a freshman, the Million Woman March happened. So that could be aging me just a little. But the Million Woman March happens, and I really want to go because I've seen all my cousins and people I know, the men going to the Million Man March, and they were talking about how amazing it was. But I didn't know how to go. I was 19. I didn't know how to go. So I was like, I'm gonna write a proposal. And so the upperclassman, the president of Black United Students was like, I'll go with you for support. So we go to the Women's Resource Center. I plead my case. I really want Black women students to go to this. I think it'll be really, A, B, C, D, E for us. And they say yes. And that was my first time writing a grant. And so people were like, and that was my first, and like the bus, I remember the night we left like late at night to get to Philly. And I remember the bus coming up and all these Black women in the parking lot waiting to go. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and that's when I really understood I have power in my hand when I
mm,
write.
yes,
I
yes.
like I can move something between head and hand. And so like that was a precursor to like grant writing later and all those kind of things. So I won the contest. Two, I wrote this grant that I didn't even know was a grant to get to the Million Woman March. Um, that's one of my proudest. I'm really proud of that because it was literally a faith move. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't think they was gonna say yes. I just wanted to do it and to like gift. Like we had a big charter bus and 50 of us went. And like it's like wow. Like I wish I could write a letter to that self because I didn't know what I was doing. It just happened. And then the third thing that happened was I got an internship at American Greetings. And so I worked as an intern at American Greetings, wanting to be in the creative side, wanting to write greeting cards, but they didn't place me there. They placed me in corporate communications. But it was there that like I learned the grind of like business writing. And it showed me, and I do this to this day, they always would work 2 or 3 seasons ahead. So like right now, they're probably working on Mother's Day cards,
Mm,
or something like that. But it taught me as a writer, like how to position myself, how to market, how to think about like, what might be happening in such and such, in March that I can like move on or think about. And so I think about that a lot when I'm working with clients. Okay, so we have this, but what's it going to be looking like in, let's say, October? Or what's the tagline? What can we use? What can we leverage? And thinking about time, because timing is everything, right? What's going to be on people's minds then, et cetera, et cetera. So those are three things that really helped me um, propel forward as a writer. And then I wound up getting a job at Shaker Heights for the city of Shaker. And that proved to be a real game changer. I was like one of the youngest ones they had hired, like right out of college. And quick story, I mean, I guess this is all the story because it's a podcast, but they were having their annual MLK program and they had a poet on program, but the poet didn't show up. I ain't tell people I was a poet because, you got to have distance sometimes between your white co-workers. And so I was like, and I was like real on the revolutionary tip kind of thing back then. And I still am, but like, it's more, I got it, under control a little bit more. But I was like, like this in my poems. And so I didn't want the white people to know. And so, so my friends knew that I was a poet. And they was like, well, Kelly a poet. And so she outed me basically
Uh,
at this work thing. And I was like, well, can you go on? Can you do something? So I did. I did this poem called What If We Don't Dream? It was about like, history and my grandfather and like how I am like the next generation, all these things. And so I get called to the mayor's office the next day. And I'm like, oh man, I ain't gonna have no job. I go to her office, Mayor Judy Rawson, shout out to her. And she says, why are you here? And I say, what do you mean? You're too good to be here. You're too good of a poet to be here. And why are you here? And I said, because ain't nobody hiring poets.
that's real though. I
Yeah,
mean, if that's how you felt at the time,
yeah, it was
yeah, like
like
I gotta survive.
you don't see job postings for poets. But she said, if you can keep up with your workload, I really want to see you be a poet. And so she's like, I'm on the board of some juvenile something. Why don't you go do some poetry for these young people? And da, 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 da. And so like she helped me just, I don't think she knows how much she helped me, but she helped me see that I could merge and weave professional and poet life together. Like I didn't know I could do that. I thought I had to
Hmm,
choose. I'm over here
okay,
on the
all
weekends
right.
being a poet, and I'm over here being, in communications for the city. But I was able to like figure it out. And the people embraced me with that. Like they weren't hating on me for being a poet. They helped me along the way. So that was another thing. And then I wound up going to graduate school and getting my master's in creative writing and arts therapy using creative writing as also a tool for therapy. So I've had a few opportunities where I've been able to uh, work with in some situations where there's been trauma and use poetry, help people write through some of their trauma. So
Where'd you go to graduate school?
it's a school called Lesley University in Massachusetts, Cambridge, Massachusetts. They call it the little sister of Harvard. So um, I
How
was
is
required
that?
to go there, completely different, a complete shift from Cleveland. And it offered me the opportunity to finally go away that I wanted when I was an undergrad, that I didn't take. And so it was different. I was the only Black person in the poetry program. So I had to learn all of the mechanics of the literary devices. I didn't get a chance to study many Black poets. I had to study them on my own.
Hmm,
So there was that. So I was learning Frost and Emily Dickinson and all the other white poets, but they weren't bringing Gwendolyn Brooks in. They weren't bringing um all the other poets, that Black women poets, Sonia Sanchez, like it was, you couldn't play with it like the way that I may do now. I graduated, but I had to unlearn a lot of what they taught me and like disguise it in other ways. Cause to retain my own voice as a writer. Cause like I don't talk like this. My people don't talk like this. These aren't my experiences. So I have to learn the game and then flip it.
hmm,
Yeah. Yeah. So
I get that. Okay, so you started to branch out and actually do more poetry while you were still doing your job.
Mhm.
So, how did you go from Baker Heights and American Greetings over to New Orleans?
I know, right? There's kind of, I always say there's a story before the story, but um, I really I had had this heartbreak. I really liked this guy. And I just knew we were going to be together. I just knew it. And he just flipped one day, like out the blue. It was like, we're not a thing. We're not, you know. And I was like, wait, what? You know? And it forced me to take my own self more seriously. The heartbreak did.
Mm,
And I really was like, I know there's one thing that will never abandon me, and that was poetry. That was writing. And like, I ain't need nobody to do that. I could do that by myself all day long, right? And so um I just really went knee deep into it, like even more so than I already was. Like I was doing poetry at Grafton, which my father did not like, the Grafton facility prison. He was like, you need to get out of there. And I was like, I'm just being a poet, you know. He's like, you're going poetry crazy. So I was doing that. I was doing poetry with guards on both sides of me, like all male, all male prison,
oh my
doing
gosh.
poetry, right? And my father, when he found out, he was like, no, absolutely not, ma'am. Get out of there. um, so I was just doing poetry everywhere. I had did some theater. I was just doing all kinds of stuff. And then I met someone, a mentor of mine, who just recently passed away, who was really instrumental in helping me as a poet. He gave me this application. He says there's this thing in Pittsburgh. It's for Black poets. It's a fellowship, 3 years. You should apply. You will meet Black poets from all over the world. You'll be in such a better position. And he kept trying to push me. You need to leave Cleveland. You can stay in Cleveland and you can be a really good poet in Cleveland. But I think you can do better. I think don't just try to be a good or the best poet in Cleveland. Try to be like test yourself outside of the city. So I applied to this thing and I got it. Cool. The second day I was there, this guy comes up to me and asked me my name and all this thing. And I was like, my name's Kelly. I'm not really trying to be bothered. You know how we can be. I don't, I'm not trying, I didn't come here to holler at nobody. I'm just coming here to like do poetry. I was kind of over it, from this heartbreak. And he was persistent. And I was like, so, but when the fellowship was over, it's like a week-long fellowship. He asked me for my number. And I was like, I didn't want to give him my number, honestly. But it's a 3-year program, so we're gonna all see each other again. I was gonna give him my wrong number, but because I really wasn't interested. But I knew if I lied, I got to see all these people again because we're all in this fellowship together. So I gave him my number. He called me and, he's like, I really enjoyed meeting you, et cetera, et cetera. 2 months later, Katrina happens. And this guy was from New Orleans. And I was like, oh my God, I just met this guy from New Orleans. I hope he's okay, you know? And at the time, I was doing some philanthropy work with a foundation. And so they were like, we're going to take on a project for New Orleans. We're going to get some money to New Orleans. And I was like, well, I know this guy. If I can never pin him down again, I can ask him what they need in New Orleans and, et cetera. And September comes because Katrina was in August. The guy calls me back and he says, I'm sorry I haven't called. Katrina happened, but I really still want to get to know you. And I was like, what? Are you okay? And he's like, I lost my house, What? Why are you calling me? And I was like that. I was like, why are you calling me? Get off the phone. Go get some help. And he was still trying to pursue me. That he later became my husband. In the beginning, it wasn't this thing of for me, it wasn't. Now he said he knew. He said he knew by like the fourth conversation. I did not know. I did not know that. And so we dated 2 years long distance, and then he proposed, and I was still skeptical though. I was like, there's so many beautiful women in New Orleans. You got a whole bunch of options in New Orleans. Why you want me? I'm this Cleveland girl. I'm a little different, I'm a little bit of a character. Why do you want to marry me? And he said, because Kelly Harris's don't grow on trees. And I didn't even know that, right? I didn't know that about myself, right?
Ooh.
Okay. Um, and so here I am. Here I am. Almost yeah, 20 years later. So I didn't move to New Orleans until later, but I was in New Orleans, like really at Katrina time. And so um although this is not my birth home, I do feel a sense of home here.
Mhm.
Um because I saw with my own eyes and experienced basically a reset of a city.
Hmm.
And so when I look at I was gonna say when I look at East Cleveland, it conjures so much about New Orleans for me because I hear people saying, uh, we just need to, East Cleveland just need to be fit. It just need to be, like kind of throwing the city away. And I know East Cleveland has its problems. I really do. But I wish that I could explain to people, and particularly Black people, just what will happen once that city is reset. Once it's reset, how much is erased in terms of culture, in terms of memory, in terms of history. And you will be saying, I remember when,
Hmm.
and nothing will be preserved, right? And you won't have nothing to fight with, and you won't be able to afford whatever. And I tried to go back and buy in East Cleveland 2 years ago, and I couldn't. Now it looks to us, to the natural eye, that this is all abandoned, but so much of where I live, like off of Superior, where I used to live in Superior, is bought.
Mhm.
They're just waiting us out. Like it looks like it's abandoned, but it really ain't. And so they got us saying this is so bad. But if it's so bad, why are y'all buying it? You know what I'm saying? And it's so close to downtown. It's the perfect location in terms of downtown location, like the lots, the huge lots that are in East Cleveland, the handiwork of a lot of those East Cleveland houses. You can't even buy, can't find nobody to make houses that are in East Cleveland today. So when I look at East Cleveland now, I always think of New Orleans, and what happened to a city and what happens to Black neighborhoods over and over again.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my little soapbox.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
What what do we do to preserve the heritage of it?
Well, I think that's where the
Because we know
political,
the transition is coming.
it is.
What
It
do we
is.
do?
Well, we need artists. The artists really help save New Orleans.
Hmm.
The preservation of the history, the storytelling, and the poems and the music, the second lines, the Mardi Gras Indians, all of those things helped you remember what New Orleans was, what New Orleans is, what New Orleans should always be. And so it always had an identity, which I think is something the greater Cleveland area struggles with. The identity generally is tied to the rock hall when it's so much more. right? Like I wish I could just sit in a room with whoever are the decision makers and say that pivot on the rock hall, if I were if they were my client, I would say no. That's not it. Now I would make a music district. I would try to pull more of the things in. Because once you go to the rock hall, to me, you don't have to go anymore, unless it's some kind of special event. But there's such a rich history, and the people are not um, elevated enough. And that's why I think this is so important because it's the people that really sell New Orleans. Yes, the culture and the food and all those things. But when you get to meet New Orleans people,
Mhm,
you're like, I'm at home. This feels like a reunion. New Orleans, it's sexy too. It's got that, it's the whole vibe. And Cleveland doesn't have to be New Orleans, but I think it could learn some lessons from New Orleans in terms of how it markets itself.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Like him, Cleveland is a big sports town,
Mm-hmm.
sure,
Mm-hmm.
but you know what else is a part of Cleveland's identity?
Well, I find that when people find out I'm from Cleveland, they think two things: LeBron and Bone Thugs and Harmony, right? Like those are the two things. Those are the markers for people. And they don't talk about the food. That some people may say, "Oh, I had a good meal there," but there's no distinct thing. Maybe Slimus might be the closest to it, or the Polish boy. By the way, I've been trying to get a good Polish boy since I've been back, and I don't even eat red meat, but I be wanting one because I'm from Cleveland, and so the last couple of times it's been like a miss for me. So whoever's watching, look, hold me a good Polish boy to the side or something. Let me know where I need to go because it's like it's changed since I've been there. But yeah, LeBron, I would always go to the Cavs. So I'm a big basketball fan. Anybody that knows me well knows that. Love basketball. And so I would always go to the games when the Cavs were playing uh the Pelicans, New Orleans Pelicans. And I remember the first time that I saw LeBron in New Orleans. You could feel it. You could feel the excitement. Like I, I don't know if people in Cleveland can really appreciate it because like you got to see him all the time play, but to be from Cleveland and to be in an arena where you see all these 23 jerseys. And I'm like, y'all ain't really Cleveland fans, y'all LeBron fans, but it's okay. Like, because I still make that distinction. I'm a Cleveland Cavs fan, and not just because of LeBron. I've been rocking with the Cavs, right? But to see all these jerseys that got Cleveland everywhere, little kids, grown men, everybody, Cleveland. Like he really, whatever you
Yeah,
think about him, he put that city in the mind, like he put it in people's minds.
absolutely did. I agree with you.
And
And
so, yeah.
and I've been a Lakers fan since I lived in Cleveland.
Look at me.
Like
Look at me
when
looking at you.
when
Lakers
Magic was
fan.
playing, I was a Lakers fan.
Okay,
Like
okay,
I was the one with the Lakers starter jacket
okay,
walking around and
okay. Yeah.
but when he came to the Lakers, I was like, oh my God. Like this is the convergence
Yes,
of
yes,
Cleveland and
yes,
LA.
yes, yes,
This is
yes.
so perfect.
Hmm. So it
Yeah.
was, yeah. So just to see it was really, I can't explain it. So I don't know what it's like to see him in Cleveland because you couldn't get a ticket, that kind of thing, or the tickets were so like it's so much cheaper to see a basketball game in New Orleans than Cleveland. So, but I do go when they're here. But so LeBron and Bone Thugs, like people always ask me, were you on East 99? Or things like that.
St. Clair,
They want to
yeah.
know about Bone
Do
and.
people ever ask you about Steve Harvey or Halle Berry?
No,
Because
no.
we claim them too.
I know, but like I don't. People don't bring that up. They bring up LeBron and
That's interesting.
yeah, yeah. So yeah. So it's always interesting to look back and see it. And um just the duality of living in two different places. Like I feel like if you can, you should live somewhere else in your lifetime just to have that experience. But I also feel like the North it feels more racist than the South. And that's a big statement.
That is a big statement.
South.
It's not something that you expect to hear.
When I come home, I can feel it. I can feel the shift, the culture shift when I come home.
Mm.
Like in the South, let's say it's a hurricane. White people will come up to you in a Confederate t-shirt and like, do you need help? You know, you got everything. I got a boat down here. I can help you, you know. But in the
Huh.
North, it's very, when I go to the Walmart, they don't want to touch my hand. And I'm like, wait a minute, you know? And I feel that like our racial history, you confront it more in the South than in the North. And so I don't think people have the same consciousness about it sometimes because like you can go to Atlanta, you can see King's house. You can go to Atlanta, you can go to the King Center. You can go to Alabama, you can see the church that was bombed. You come here, you can see Congo Square. But in the North, you don't have the same amount of landmarks, kind of historical landmarks
It's
that
not in your face as much, and people want to.
yeah. So
You're
I don't know.
not like that
Might be
here, but
going
people
left in
are.
a that might be going left in the conversation a little bit, but um there's so many things that I have had epiphanies about
Mm,
just living in another place and things about Cleveland I would have never thought about had I not moved.
hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you. I mean, you do grow
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, while you're gone.
Yeah. But there's
You
also things
do.
about me that are like still the same, from Cleveland. Like when I first moved to New Orleans, my dad was like, okay, now don't go down there mean mugging everybody. Like, chill. Like you don't have to be, but there are still like a lot of things about me that are Cleveland for sure.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, it come in the EC, it come out of you, every now and again. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
I mean, our kids did not grow up in Cleveland, but I'm sure that they can tell the difference between their parents and somebody else
mhm.
because of the ways that Cleveland has influenced it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So, yeah, there's something special
Yeah.
about it.
And
So,
I'm not knocking Cleveland because I always rep it. I always have it in my bio some kind of way, and
yeah,
people are shocked, but yeah, it's just been an interesting journey, an interesting ride.
how did you come to some of the writing projects that you've had and some of the work that you've done in New Orleans, such as writing for films and the NBA All-Star Weekend? How did those things come about?
Well, at one point I was just hustling, Cleveland be on the grind. We gonna hustle. And I mean, I
For sure.
like,
That's
you,
something that stays with you.
yeah. And so I was helping somebody with something once, and they were like, I'll pay you. You're so good at it. And they paid me like $2,000. And like they went on and the project worked and they were successful. So me being from Cleveland and being how I think, I was like, if I can make 2,000, can I make four? If I can make four, can I make six? And if I can make six, can I make 10? Right?
Yeah.
So I started my own business just off this one opportunity of making $2,000. Because I thought $2,000 was like, ooh, I'm making a come up, because it was just so crazy to me because I made it myself. Like I wasn't working for, I was working for somebody, but I didn't apply for a job. I didn't, so I was like, oh. And so it just kind of happened like that. And so that person told some people, and then I got like another thing. And then that worked out well. And then another thing. And I will also say, I think I came to New Orleans at the right time because it was a reset. So, like, all the foundations were coming, Kellogg and all these different people. And it was all this movement in the city in almost every sector to try to rebuild the city. And so I would be asked to be a facilitator or I'd asked to do something. And so, honestly, a lot of the work really came word of mouth.
Mm.
I don't even have a website, and I've been in business like 10 years. It's so bad, right? And all the things that I tell my clients not to do, I do, right? And they're like, Kelly, come on. So this year, I'm really going to start my website and do it more formally, right? But I've just been like winging it, and it's been
Uh-huh.
right. And so, the All Star thing came because uh, they wanted someone to help copy edit everything that was happening. So like, television, they have the prompters. So like one of the worst things that can happen is you type something wrong or something's not right on the prompter and people are reading it.
Mhm.
So you don't want like Ernie Johnson saying, the wrong thing, or Charles
Right.
saying the wrong thing. So like I was just there to like be a keen eye, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
then something happened with one of the people that was actually working. I wasn't hired to work the halftime team. They just liked what I was doing. And something happened with somebody else. And the next thing I know, I was like on the floor. Next thing I know, I'm seeing like the roots or whatever. And I'm like, wait, what? So that kind of thing. And then I had already been doing work for Essence. So,
Okay.
um, and I like did a freelance thing and some other stuff. And people just said my name. It's really true what the Bible says that your name will make room for you. Your gifts will make room for you. And I was just blessed to just have a good reputation. And so it just opened up doors. But working Essence, I got a lot of connections through that. And so it just kind of, and the crazy story about that was at the time of that halftime, that All-Star weekend, LeBron and Kyrie were still playing for the Cavs. And so, like, I remember at one point all the players walking by and like seeing LeBron in person, like, oh my God, he's really big. I mean, I'm short, but I was like, whoa, um, and seeing Kyrie, uh, Irving, and this is a crazy story. Like, the players were supposed to enter one way, right? This other arena, and it was like all on lockdown. You couldn't get over there. They had security. Even I couldn't get over there, right? And so I'm over in my area where I'm working, and I see this guy with a flannel shirt. I don't know why in New Orleans at that time, and like a backpack. And I'm like, that looks like Kyrie Irving. And he's just walking through the back, meeting people, and it occurred to, and I said this about him then. I said, I think, I think Kyrie likes playing basketball. I don't think he liked being in the NBA. I don't think he liked what comes with the NBA. I think he just want to play basketball, but being in the NBA is how he gets paid for doing it, because he was so like for him to do that and everybody else over here. So I knew then, like that was a sign to me that he's really his own person. He ain't got to rock with all them all like that, and he ain't got to be in the lights all like that. So that was like a cool moment. And I was kind of fangirling out. And I really should have said, can I get a picture? But I have been so trained working through Essence and other things that we don't ask
Right.
for all that. We just doing the work. And so but yeah, so that was cool. That was a really cool opportunity. Um but yeah, I really wish that I had a more fancy story it just so happened that I was able to get those opportunities.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you are a mom to a wonderful child who I had the privilege of meeting a few weeks ago for the first time, Naomi, who was just recently named one of Time Magazine's Girls of the Year.
Yeah.
Please tell us how this came about.
Again, um, I I don't really know, honestly. We were packing. She was going to UC Berkeley this summer to go to a medical camp. She wants to be a transplant surgeon. She had got recommended for this camp with young people from all over the world, um, or the United States, I should say. And we were packing, and I heard my computer, and I go and check it, and it's from Time Magazine asking for parental consent to consider her to be on the list for the first ever Time Magazine Girl of the Year. I'm like, my mouth dropped. I was like, is this spam? Like I couldn't believe it. And they were, saying for her activism around uh organ donation and everything like that. And so um we had to like sit on it for a while, for like maybe a month and a half. But they were constantly contacting us, and they had a partnership with Lego. And so all the girls were designed as a Lego, which that's what she was really, really excited about because she loves Legos. But it just came out of nowhere. It really did. We didn't apply. We don't know nobody at Time.
Hmm.
We didn't know they were doing a girls list, It literally dropped from heaven. And so we've been very busy. This morning she had a photo shoot. It's like it's
Okay,
crazy.
momager.
Yeah, but I have worked very hard to try to pace her girlhood.
Mhm.
And I've been criticized at times for people will say, just let her be a kid. And I think she is a kid. She still do cartwheels. She's still a regular kid. She takes physics though, chemistry, biology, like all this stuff. But she's like, to me, a regular kid. She's just Naomi. Um, but I read something the other day saying that uh, uh, white parents, especially like more of people from affluent families, they see all of this as rehearsal. Things like this, going to this camp, doing that as rehearsal for life. Whereas a lot of times we just want our kids to be happy. And like I want her to be happy. I want her to have balance. But they see it more as practice for the future. And so now that she's Time Mag Girl of the Year, the only one from the US, which is even more crazy, um, I
Incredible.
don't have to get her ready. I don't have to try to coach her. She knows how to articulate herself. She knows how, but that's because of all the things she's been exposed to. And so that, I don't believe that practice makes perfect, but practice does make one prepared.
Mhm.
And I should say the backdrop of all that is that my husband fought kidney disease. And so she wrote a children's book because she was mad at us. Um, really, because we didn't tell her until it was like go time for the surgery. And she was just like, wait a minute, like, until he had dialysis at home, I should say.
How old was she when this happened?
6. So all this time she didn't like she was born and he was already sick, right? Um, and so my husband had a transplant our 12th year of marriage, but he was diagnosed our second year of marriage. So on top of like all these things that we're talking about, I suddenly was facing vows that I had just said that I didn't think I was gonna have to deal with that early on in sickness and in health and all those things. And so I hadn't even unpacked all the way yet from Cleveland. And next thing I know, like we're in this crisis. And so um those were some serious challenges. And it's not for the weak. When you have a chronic illness, you have the same problem every day. And it compounds all the other problems that you already have. And but if you don't solve this problem, it's death. And so um for 10 years, we talk about Cleveland being on the grind. That was a different grind that I don't wish on anybody, but for 10 years, we went through that. And so uh, her book comes out of that. And so now she's doing all kinds of things. She just got invited to speak at a hospital to pediatric doctors in South Carolina. Um, and it's wild. It's a really like I didn't even expect that. And a lot of things I do, I just do it out of instinct. I'm like, oh, that'll be a good idea. And so that's how the book happened. I published the book. I produced the book through my own company. I never did a children's book before. I didn't know what I was doing. I just garnered the right people around me. And then next thing I know, I'm seeing the book, you know, everywhere. And so I feel I'm tremendously blessed. But I would also say to people to bet on yourself. And the scriptures say, that God orders our steps. But God can't order your steps if you ain't going nowhere.
Oh,
If you ain't trying to move nowhere, what can God or God can't order
right.
your steps if you're not trying to walk nowhere, right? And so I've just taken some gambles. Some have driven my husband absolutely crazy. Um, because I don't like hearing I can't or I don't think that's a good idea. Like I feel like most things are figure outable, you know. And so I've just leaped on a lot of things and figured out a way to land on my feet. That's the honest truth. So I'm just blessed in that way. Yeah.
Truly. You have such talent of your own, and then your husband is a talented writer, and your daughter is a talented writer who will, as far as we know, one day be a doctor.
hmm Yeah,
Um,
she's very clear. She doesn't want to be a writer.
yeah.
Like that's not, don't put that on me. I'm not gonna be a writer. And then my husband is in journalism, so he's a more technical writer, whereas I'm the creative one, the creative writer of the two of us. And somehow it works most days, not every day.
So that being said, you have a poem about Cleveland
I
that you,
do. Let me see. Trying to decide which one. I'm gonna do, let's see. Sorry. We'll do Down the Way. I was gonna do this poem for Bone, but I won't do that one. Down the Way for East Cleveland.
okay.
Down the way, below the hill, under the nose of middle class and integration, we lived, where white folks left their shadows on bricks, carried home values away like looters. They'll be back, Grandpa said. White people gone is never goodbye. Bender Avenue is where we lived. Black was our mirror, a skin of geography, Delta blues, Mississippi River, a migration block party. You had to be there to watch the men hold cigarettes in the corners of their laughter, fixing cars, broken bikes. We had to go. Be somebody. Show them white folks downtown and up. Bet on ourselves, human dice rolling. We knew hot blocks and boys' real names: Derek, Sean, Anthony, Terrell. I swear to God, they all was fine. If you've never been called baby girl, or shorty. You don't know plain love from a broken boy, almost man, blunted lips, Heineken grins, licking his lips, basement kiss down the way at the corner store. We pushed pennies and jokes with sugared tongues. Grandmothers prayed, ironed our sins, Sunday school, pressed our naps, dinner from scratch. Some days were bloody. Corey, my neighbor, shot in winter, only child, yellow tape. Superior Ave, huddled in grief, sirens spinning us into a wreath, weeping down the way. Between girl and grown, I jumped rope in and out of smiles, wanted to be noticed, never taken. Burdens and brilliance walked with me. Birds out my window limped and screamed. Train tracks sped to other people's lives. But we never hid our poor Black selves. We never said goodbye.
That's beautiful, brilliant, and beautiful. And I can picture it all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, what's next for you?
I don't know. I really don't know. I would say I'm trying to figure it out, but I feel like I just try to position myself for the next thing to find me. I have a manuscript that a press is looking at right now that I'm hoping they will select and publish next year. Um, Naomi is keeping me really busy right now with all the Time magazine stuff. I'm just trying to live a quiet life of productivity, if that makes sense. I don't want to be a star. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be a celebrity. I just want to like do good in the world and um and just like be loved and I don't know, live in peace and I've never ruled out coming back home. My parents are aging. I miss my family. I'm the only one that left.
Hmm,
So there's always that on my shoulders. And I don't want to get the call,
I get that.
you know. Um, so I don't know. Uh, Sometimes the next thing is just to keep doing what you're doing and to be consistent with it and to like wake up in the morning and believe. Um, so I don't know what my next thing is. Um, I will say that recently I was able to go to Africa and man, that was so life-changing for me. That has really just widened my lens, but also it has given me great focus. And so, and I feel peace. Like the world is chaotic, but I felt like when I went to Africa and saw where our people had been through and to go to the slave dungeons and all of those things, I felt like a reassurance that we'll be all right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a testament to resilience for sure.
yes. It's like y'all really tried to kill us.
Really.
Like for real. And you had disregard for our humanity and God.
Hmm.
And we still here. And we still here. We're still here and and doing great things. And so when I saw those dungeons and walked through those dungeons and saw the shore of where we were kidnapped from and all of those things, I don't know. It made me get up more. Like when I got
Mm,
back, like
mm.
get up. You know what I mean? Let me get up and go get it at the gym. Let me get up and do it. And so I that's a long answer to I don't know what's next, but I'm just trying to stay with God and do the best I can.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I thank you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you for having.
It
Um,
you truly are dope.
thank you.
Can't wait to see what comes next for you. And um you are really a testimony to how Cleveland can influence someone's life and that it lives with us
Mhm,
forever, whether we're there or not.
mhm.
And you know, we just take Cleveland with us wherever we go.
Yeah. And I find that when I meet somebody from Cleveland or the area outside of Cleveland, it's not the same barriers. Like there's like a lady when they were job, we never go this way, right? And like last year, a couple years ago, maybe there was a house that had a whole Browns set up in the yard, and I was like, "Now you really bold, because you were LSU country, you and the Saints, all of that." She had a whole
Right.
Brown set up, but she was from Brecksville, and uh, the likelihood of me hanging out and laughing with somebody from Brecksville in Cleveland is probably less likely, but it happened here in Louisiana.
That is so true. That is so true.
Mhm.
Like, if you don't know it, Cleveland is a pretty segregated place.
Very, very much so. But it was like, "You're from Cleveland? Oh my God." And she hugged me and everything. And like, and she's like, "You gotta join the Cleveland Backers." And I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna do all of that. I mean, I respect it, but like she had a whole system of Cleveland folks. And I should say there's four Black women here from Cleveland. And we hang out, we talk,
I love that.
we keep up with what's happening there, and we all joke one day that we're gonna come back as a super team, like do some dope stuff in Cleveland, one day.
Right on. I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have an eagle eye spotting anything related to Cleveland.
Yeah, yeah, there's some I mean yeah, some and there's another ironic thing. I should have said this in the interview, but one of the most ironic things about living here is the love that people in New Orleans have for the song Casanova. All the brass bands play it, all the like
That's incredible. I
so
love that.
so many people don't even know Levert did
Oh
it.
my
They think it's a New Orleans song. They think it's a brass band song. And so
God.
I was writing for the State's cultural magazine, and I was like, I've got to do this. The roots of the beloved, Casanova song. And so I had to drop Cleveland, like I had to
Of
trace it from
course.
Cleveland. And so I was able to talk to like some of the old folks from Levert's, people that had worked with them um and like put this piece out there. And there were so many people like, wow, I didn't even know that Casanova was like a whole other song, right? Like people really didn't know. So um I guess I'll leave on that. If you have wherever you're watching, go to YouTube and look up Casanova brass bands, New Orleans, and you will hear that song completely transformed into like New Orleans style. And so every second, like you're going to hear it. And so like when I came here and I heard, I was like, is that Casanova? Like my Casanova, like my Cleveland's Casanova, it was really, it was just wow. And so every time I go to a second liner, every time I'm at a party or something like that, it's played and I'm transported back
I love
to,
it so
yeah. So,
much.
so Cleveland is here, even in the spirit of it's been transformed it through song, but we all know that it comes from Gerald Levert and all of those things. So and it's funny because when I go to the airport and I say I rent a car in Cleveland and I turn to, ZAK, I always turn back to the old radio station.
Yeah,
I almost always hear that song, right? And so it's like I leave one place and hear it one way, and I come back home and I hear it the original way. So that's always cool when that happens.
that's
So
cool. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out to see how they transformed it,
yeah,
New Orleans style.
yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
mhm. Well,
Thanks
this
again.
thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to seeing what I said. I don't know if I was making sense, but
Of
uh,
course you did.
I hope that people enjoy it. And thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.